Talk Show.
Recorded live.
Okay, here we go.
Well, here's a few facts about the ISS. That 15 countries made a success. Took a lot of space flights for us to build a station as big as a football field. 2 Johns on board, but they got no bath. Orbits the Earth in an hour and a half. 200 miles up off the ground and tipping them scales at £1 million. Making benefits for humanity through new science and technology. Over 200 people have lived on board, the heroes of Earth who were driven to explore space, that is, off the Earth, for the Earth, on the journey to Mars.
You're listening to Our Next Giant Leap, a podcast that's out of this world. And now here is your host, Mike Williams.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Our Next Giant Leap. I am your host, Mike Williams, and this is being recorded live on TalkShoe. If you missed the pilot episode and want to know what this show is all about, you download it from iTunes, TalkShoe, or by going to my website, mikewilliamsinc.wordpress.com, and click on the podcast button. I want to thank everyone that is listening into the podcast today, those of you that are streaming live via the phone or computer, and those of you in the chat room. I want to welcome you to the show. The clip you heard at the beginning of the show was from NASA, and it was entitled The International Space Station, a Musical, and that link to the YouTube video will be in the show notes later, so you can grab those. If we're going to send humans to Mars one day, we have to learn a lot about how certain things react to long periods of time in space, from how to grow food, how different materials act in a microgravity environment. We also need to know how the human body changes in space. And that's exactly what the space station is doing. It's a test bed for long-duration exposure to the microgravity environment. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, the International Space Station, our stepping stone to Mars. The station is the biggest and most complex science laboratory ever constructed in space. The modules were put together by over 15 countries. Each module has to fit just right and were assembled together for the first time in space, many of which were flown up by the space shuttle. Currently, there is only one spacecraft that launches both astronauts and cosmonauts to the ISS. They are launched aboard a Russian Soyuz vehicle, which launches from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, Russia. There are several cargo vehicles that deliver supplies to the ISS. There is the European Automated Transfer Vehicle, or ATV, which can carry up to 7.5 tons of supplies. Cygenus, which is built by Orbital ATK, and one of 2 American commercial companies delivering cargo to the space station, and it can also carry almost 2 tons of supplies. The Sygena spacecraft is currently on its way to the International Space Station with more than 7,000 pounds of supplies and equipment after a flawless launch a couple of days ago from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. It will dock with the station at 6:10 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, and NASA TV will begin coverage of the rendezvous and docking starting at 4:45 a.m. Eastern Time. So if you're a morning person and you get up early, a little after 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time here in the U.S., you can watch the rendezvous and docking of the Sygena spacecraft. Japan's H-2 transfer vehicle, or HE, can carry 6 tons of supplies to the ISS. The Russian Progress spacecraft delivers 2.5 tons of fuel, equipment, and supplies. And last but not least, the Dragon, built by the American company SpaceX, which is the only automated cargo vehicle that can return science samples back to Earth. The space station modules and laboratories include the Columbus Laboratory, which is built by the European Space Agency, the Cupola observation module, which is basically the window to the world and where a lot of great pictures are taken of Earth by astronauts and cosmonauts on board. Destiny Laboratory is the primary research lab for the U.S. Harmony node, which is the one that is used to connect Kibo, Columbus, and Destiny. It's also used as a docking port for some of the automated cargo vehicles. Kibo is Japan's research laboratory. It also has a robotic arm attached. The PMM is the Italian-built permanent multi-purpose module, which is attached to the Unity node. RASVET is used primarily for cargo storage and some payload operations. Tranquility node, which is one of the last U.S. components added to the space station. It's a place where some of the crew exercise in. The U.S.-built Unity node connects to the Quest airlock, the Destiny Laboratory, Zarya module, the Tranquility node, and the PMM. The Zarya module provides the station with propulsion and power, and Zvezda, which serves as a docking port for Russian cargo, crew vehicles, as well as ATV cargo spacecraft. So those are some of the modules that make up the International Space Station. That does not include the U.S. and Russian airlocks, robots like Destiny and Robonaut, and of course the truss sets, radiators, and solar arrays. If you want to know more detail about the International Space Station, I'm going to give you 2 places to go. One is nasa.gov/ISS, and the other is the YouTube video filmed with the help of astronaut Sunny Williams, and she kind of gives you a tour of the ISS, what life is like aboard while she was on the station. And those links will be in the show notes, which you, of course, can go to by going to my website, mikewilliamsinc.wordpress.com. The current crew aboard the space station is the Expedition 45 crew, 2 of which are spending a year in space. NASA astronaut Scott Kelly and Russian cosmonaut Mikhail Kornienko. Mikhail and Scott are being subjected to a host of experiments, some of which include how the human body suffers bone loss in microgravity, muscle loss, effects of radiation exposure, and during long-duration space flights, some astronauts have had problems with blurred vision. All these experiments, along with many others, will help scientists and engineers better understand how the human body reacts to long-duration space flights and how to counteract problems that occur in space, which are important for a journey to Mars. Scott Kelly and Cal Lindgren recently did an interview from aboard the ISS with Amy Shara Title, and they talked a little bit about what it's going to take to get to Mars. And I want to play a little bit about that, play a little of that interview for you.
How do you think your time on board the ISS is a good analog for the challenges of a mission to Mars?
Well, I think, the duration it's going to take to get there is somewhere, probably around the 6-month, flight, and then depends on orbital mechanics and how much propulsion you want to use in the technology. But, from that perspective, I think it's pretty similar. Also, the life support system we have up here is, something that we're going to need to go to Mars, and I think we do a good job in, demonstrating that we have that capability. So, with the exception of what you do when you get on the surface and the re-enter or the entering into Martian atmosphere and the return from the surface, I think there are a lot of similarities.
Having to get all of the training that we need in order to do the repairs that we have station, and to really have the mindset to be able to be in an enclosed space for a long duration of time with other crew members, to be prepared for that. That will definitely be something that's a part of a Mars mission.
The psychology of being in space must be very different. I can only imagine being able to see the Earth versus not seeing the Earth. How do you think that will differ for a crew going to Mars, the psychology of being in space?
Yeah, it will differ. There's no doubt about that. We can look out the window and see the Earth in all its beauty at different times of day. It's sometimes it's during the day, sometimes it's night. I don't think something that people really appreciate is that when you're going to Mars, you're in sunlight all the time. Every time you look out the window, it's not going to see stars. You're going to see nothing because the sun is going to be so bright on your whole trip there. So, after a few days and you can no longer see Earth, it's going to feel like you're really out in the middle of nowhere and you're on your own.
There's obviously a lot of things that I can only imagine you both miss about Earth. What do you think is going to be the biggest challenge from a personal human level for a crew going to Mars, and what has surprised you being on the ISS that we might not think about when we're talking about a journey to Mars in terms of things you miss, things that are really going to make it hard for a crew being that far from home?
Well, one thing I miss here is the ability to leave. So even though this is an amazing place and it's a privilege to get to fly in space, you never get to go outside. You're not leaving, and that's something that the folks going to Mars are going to experience too. The one difference is, in an emergency, we can go home and we can be there pretty quickly if we really had to. I think the other big difference is going to be our ability to communicate with folks on the ground. It's a real advantage we have both, operationally and from a personal level to be able to get on the phone and call people. But, pretty soon after we depart for Mars, you're going to get a time delay in communication such that it's not going to be usable. So that's going to play have a big impact on the psychology of the trip.
When you start a mission like this, a 5-month mission or a year mission like Scott is doing, and for those crew members that will eventually go to Mars, I think you start out with a mindset, though. You start out with you anticipate kind of what the challenges are going to be, and I think one of the things that I've experienced that surprised me a little bit is really how adaptable the human brain and psychology. So I think that you adapt to the conditions and quickly normalize to them. So the fact that communications will be a little bit delayed, I think you're still going to treasure that opportunity to talk with friends and family, even though there is a little bit of a delay. And I think you're going to have this long trip, this really kind of set in your mind already. That will make things a little bit easier.
Well, that was pretty incredible. Astronauts are on board the International Space Station right now running experiments that are helping push us forward to Mars. Not only are they working on the technological elements, but the human elements, because a journey to Mars is hard.
and Amy Share-Title has a great YouTube channel called Vintage Space. If you want to know about the golden age of spaceflight and how it all began, Amy has some great videos and great explanations and insights on America's first space flights. And I'll have a link to that in the show notes. Now it's time for questions and answers. And today I thought I'd share with you a question I get asked all the time. That is, how does a spacecraft get up to the International Station? A lot of people are under the assumption that you launch the rocket and it goes straight up to the station. But there's a little bit of rocket science and orbital mechanics involved. Today, you're going to learn a little bit about rocket science. You're going to find out what Hutton transfer and phasing burn is. I promise you, it's not that technical or complicated. There's an engineer of Destin, and he had an interview recently with Reed Wiseman, astronaut Reed Wiseman, and in that interview, they both discuss about how the Soyuz gets to the ISS.
Hey, it's me, Destin. Welcome back to Smarter Every Day. Most people know that if you're going to go to the International Space Station, you first get on this rocket in Russia called the Soyuz. You strap yourself in, you launch from Baikonur, and you go straight up to the space station, you pop open the hatch, and then you high-five all your astronaut buddies, right? But there's a lot more to it if you think about it. There's actually orbital mechanics that are all figured out on the ground before they leave. So today on Smarter Every Day, we're going to talk about rocket science, and it's really not that hard, I promise. U.S. astronaut Scott Kelly and Russian cosmonaut Mikhail Kornienko are about to go to the International Space Station for an entire year. That's a really big deal. But before we talk about the orbital mechanics, think about this. Astronauts are just people, like me, like you. What would you be thinking about if you were strapped into that rocket and when you're going to leave warm showers for an entire year? How cool would it be to actually get inside this Russian rocket and have just a normal person-to-person conversation with the guy that's about to do this? Even though his launch window is getting closer and closer and his time on Earth is more and more going, Scott Kelly was gracious enough to volunteer some of his free time to just hang out with us in the Soyuz capsule and tell us what he's about to do.
This is astronaut Scott Kelly.
Hi.
Scott's about to do something no American has ever done. He's about to rock one of these, which is a Soyuz capsule, up to the International Space Station. Long?
I'll be there about a year. I'll launch in March of 2015, next March this year, and land sometime in March the following year. So it'll be almost a year.
All right. So there's a whole regime of experiments that's going to happen because of this. The main goal is to get ready for Mars, long-duration mission, right?
Yep, that's correct. NASA's goal is to put people on Mars, so there's a lot we need to still learn about that. Some of it has to do with, how the space environment affects the human body for a long time, particularly with regards to bone loss, muscle loss, the effects of radiation on our genetics, our vision. We have problems with vision with crew members during long-duration spaceflight, our immune system, vestibular system. So that's kind of the human part of it. And there's also the hardware part of it. Traveling that far away from Earth is represents a...
Okay, I apologize about that audio clip. That's not exactly the clip that I was intended on playing, but when I upload the podcast, I'll have the audio clip in there and you can listen to it. Dustin has a great website called Smarter Every Day, and you should definitely check it out. I'll have a link to it in the show notes. So that's our show for today. I want to thank you for listening to the show, and thank you for downloading it. If you have any questions or comments, you can drop me a voicemail at 321-351-8539 or send me an email at mikewilliams573@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Our Next Giant LP, all one word. Now, because our next episode will be 2 weeks from now on December 22nd, which would put it right before Christmas, I've decided not to do a show then. Due to the busyness of the holiday season, I will be back with episode 2 on January 5th, The Martian. Is there any truth in the movie? I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Have a great holiday season. I hope that Santa gives you everything that you want. Goodbye, everybody, and have a great holiday. Okay, let me just stop this. Recording.